नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमं श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 14, Lord Krishna explains the yoga system to Shri Uddhava. Text number 18 onwards. So yoga system, he is telling him all about Bhakti Yoga. That is the topmost yoga. So Krishna further says, Badhyamano api madbhakto vishyer achitendriya rahaya pragalbhaya bhaktya vishyer na vibhuyate. My dear Uddhav, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be harassed by material desires. But because of his unflinching devotion for me, he will not be defeated by sense gratification. So strong, so powerful this bhakti is, and on top of it, mercy of Krishna, that he will not be defeated by sense gratification. Abhibhuyate indicates falling down into the material world and being defeated by Maya. But even though one's senses are not fully conquered, one who has unflinching devotion for Lord Krishna does not run the risk of being separated from him. The words pragalbhaya bhaktya indicate a person who has great devotion for Lord Krishna and not one who desires to commit sinful activities and chant Hare Krishna to avoid the reaction. So this is considered one of the offenses in chanting of the holy names, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting of the holy names. So that is not what is mentioned in this verse. If somebody is performing devotional service, but we all have old samskaras from previous births and then material desires are there. And sometimes we may commit some activity which is not favorable to devotional service. That's what it says in the next line. Because of previous bad habits and immaturity, even a sincere devotee may be harassed by lingering attraction to the bodily concept of life. But his unflinching devotion for Lord Krishna will act. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the following two examples. A great warrior may be struck by the weapon of his enemy, but because of his courage and strength, he is not killed or defeated. He accepts the blow and goes on to victory. Similarly, one may contract a serious disease, but if he takes a proper medicine, he is quickly cured. So Maya will keep on attacking, and we have our old sanskaras to deal with, or so many desires are there. But the devotee still keeps going, and he's not, he doesn't succumb to the pressures of Maya. If those who follow the impersonal system of speculation and austerity deviate even slightly from their path, they fall down. A devotee, however, even though immature, never falls from the path of devotional service. Now it says never falls. It can happen that he falls down. It can happen that there is some break in his devotional service. But the advantage is, whenever he starts from wherever he had left off. And Krishna, he is so considerate, so loving of his devotees that he himself helps them to bring them back on the path very soon. Even if he displays occasional weakness, he is still considered a devotee if his devotion to Lord Krishna is very strong. As Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita 9:30, Api chetsu duracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhurev samantavya samyak vyavasito hi sa. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotion service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. This is wonderful statement by Krishna. Apis chet suduracharo, most abominable actions, even if it's somebody has committed. But if he is engaged in devotion service, he is to be considered saintly. Of course, this doesn't mean somebody takes advantage of this verse. Of course, in the purport, Prabhupada says, if somebody falls down accidentally, then he should still be considered saintly, because if he is engaged in devotional service and not doing those activities again. But at the same time, if something Krishna has to purify some devotee, then whatever Krishna decides, that's fine. but at the same time, Krishna definitely helps his devotees from, even if they've fallen down, he helps them bring them back. And how it is mentioned here, text 19, Yathagni susvriddharchi karoti edhansi bhasmasa tatha mad vishaya bhakte udhva nansi kritsnashaha. My dear Uddhav, just as a blazing fire turns firewood into ashes, similarly devotion unto me completely burns to ashes sins committed by my devotees. One should carefully note that the Lord refers to devotion that is like a blazing fire. Blazing fire means anything that comes in the path of blazing fire, that is burned to ashes. To commit sinful activity on the strength of chanting the holy name is the greatest offense, and the devotion of one who commits this offense cannot be compared to a blazing fire of love for Krishna. As stated in the previous verse, a sincere loving devotee, because of immaturity or previous bad habits, may be disturbed by his senses, even though he has accepted Lord Krishna as the only goal in his life. But if by chance the devotee accidentally falls down without premeditation or indifference, the Lord immediately burns to ashes his sinful reactions, just as a blazing fire immediately consumes an insignificant piece of wood. Lord Krishna is glorious, and one who takes exclusive shelter of the Lord receives the unique benefits of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An insignificant piece of wood. And also it is mentioned that Krishna's name is non-different from Krishna. So if one chants with full faith, full sincerity from the bottom of his heart, only one name of Krishna, then that name of Krishna can burn the sins that devotee can't even think of committing. Forget about committed. He can't even think of committing so many sins that they all will be burnt to ashes just by chanting one name of Krishna. That's how powerful, because it's non-different from Krishna. But again, offense is not something is forgotten or forgiven. Sin is. There's a difference. First of all, committing sin on the strength of chanting of the holy names is an offense. So that is not forgiven. For that, one has to go through his rectification. And the second is, if we commit sin, but it ends up offending a devotee, then it's an offense. Just like Jagai Madhai, when we study Chaitanya Charitamrita, we'll study, they were the most sinful. They committed so many sins, and not just committed, every day they were committing sins. The only thing they did not commit was an offense against the Vaishnavas. And they got the mercy of them. Only offense they committed was hitting Lord Nityananda with a pot of liquor, earthen pot of liquor on his head. And that too, Madhai committed that. And Lord Nityananda is the Supreme Lord. So he forgave them right away. Even though he was bleeding. But other than that, they never committed an offense. They were committing sins, all sorts of sins. Can't even think of that many sins. And in fact, it was said, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgave them, both Jagai and Madhai, and seeing the merciful nature of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even to see these pastimes, Yamaraj was there in the sky. Yamaraj-ji, Shivji, Brahmaji, Naradji, everybody, all the demigods were there. And Yamaraj-ji asked his servant Chitragupta, give me a record of the sins these boys, Jagai and Madhai, have committed. And Chitragupta said that they have committed, every day they had committed so many sins that my whole team of data collector, they just worked overtime and they were completely exhausted and they were ready to commit suicide or give up their jobs. They said, we cannot keep up with these sins of these two guys. It's mentioned in the scriptures, not making it up. And then Chitragupta said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya, he is so merciful. He has just burnt all their sins and just threw it away, just like that. Like an insignificant thing. And he has taken them under his shelter and he has engaged them in Sankirtan Yagya. This is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how merciful he was. That sins he can forget just like that. He was not ready to forgive the offense committed by Madhai of hitting Nityananda Prabhu. And for that, he said, oh Madhai, you first take shelter of Lord Nityananda. And if he forgives you, I'll forgive you. And Lord Nityananda, before even Madhai could ask for anything, he said, yes, I forgive you, I forgive you. Just take shelter of lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu gave him love of Krishna. Jagai and Madhai gave them love for Krishna. So this is how merciful the Lord is. And here Krishna himself is saying, just as a blazing fire turns firewood into ashes, similarly devotion unto me completely burns to ashes sins committed by my devotees. Of course, that doesn't mean we start committing more and newer sins. So we have to curb that tendency of committing sins also. Further, Krishna says, na sadhyati mam yogo, na sankyam dharmadhava, na swadhyayastapastyago, yatha bhaktir mamorjita. My dear Uddhava, the unalloyed devotional service rendered to me by my devotees brings me under their control. I cannot be thus controlled by those engaged in mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, pious work, Vedic study, austerity, or renunciation. See, Krishna himself says how devotional service controls him, nothing else. One may make Krishna the goal of mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, etc. Yet such activities do not please the Lord as much as direct loving service, which one practices by hearing and chanting about the Lord and executing his mission. Srila Rupa Goswami states, Jnana Karmadi Anavrita. A devotee should simply depend on Krishna and should not unnecessarily complicate his loving service with tendencies towards fruitive work or mental speculation. The residents of Vrindavan simply depend on Lord Krishna. When the great serpent Aghasura appeared in the precincts of Raja, the cowherd boys, completely confident in their friendship with Lord Krishna, fearlessly marched into the serpent's gigantic mouth. Such pure love for Krishna brings the Lord under the control of the devotee. See, Lord is supremely independent. Krishna is supreme. We have some minute independence, but Krishna is supremely independent. And nobody likes to be controlled by anybody else. We don't like, we don't want anybody to order us to do this, to do that. But Krishna, this is how much he loves his devotees. He comes under their control. Other paths, they say, Lord is my Father, Lord is my Master. Here, devotees, they control the Lord by their love. Gopis, we see Mother Yashoda, she was bringing a stick in her hand, and she tried to bind up Krishna, and she ended up binding up Krishna. And seeing the stick in her hand, Krishna is crying and rubbing his eyes again and again. That's the Damodar Leela. Can you even imagine this kind of description in any other path? No. They'll say this is simply ridiculous. How can somebody show a stick to the Lord and Lord is crying? But this is Krishna's love for his devotees. He comes under their control. So much so that the devotees can give Krishna to anybody. Means Krishna or Krishna's bhakti, they can give to anybody. And Krishna doesn't mind that. He himself doesn't give his bhakti to everybody. But his devotees can. Because this is special powers given to devotees by him. These are special powers of devotees. Why? Because they control Krishna by their love, by their mode of service. Krishna cannot go against devotees. This is what he is mentioning here. Bhaktyam ekaya graya shraddhyatma priya satam bhakti punati mannishtha shvapakanapi sambhavan. Only by practicing devotion, unalloyed devotional service with full faith in me can one obtain me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am naturally dear to my devotees who take me as a goal of their loving service. By engaging in such pure devotional service, even the dog eaters can purify themselves from the contamination of their low birth. Even the dog eaters, Shopakan. Shopakan means dog eaters. So sometimes people don't understand what's wrong with eating some meat. It's just meat. No. Dog eaters, or the people who like to eat dog's meat, they are the lowest. Chandal, they're called Chandals. In China and some other Eastern countries, it's considered a delicacy to eat dog meat. It's not just meat, it's the consciousness in that meat, because it belongs to the dog's body. It's very low. But here, and because even at the time when Bhagavad was written, it must be the tendency or must be a practice. That's why it's mentioned here. Even the dog eaters, and not just at the time of writing of Bhagavatam, even from the very beginning. So dog eaters must be there. So even they can get purified because the consciousness is so low. But if they engage in devotional service, they also can get purified. They cannot get purified by other processes because they cannot engage themselves in other processes. Reading scriptures, no way, no jnana yoga, no hatha yoga. They cannot do anything else. But devotion service, it's actually it's a constitutional position of every living entity to perform devotion service to Krishna. And that is why even if they are dog eaters in this lifetime because of whatever sins they committed to get this kind of body, if they engage in devotional service, they can still make tons of progress. They can purify. So purport says Sambhavat indicates jati dosha, or the pollution of low birth. Jati dosha does not refer to mundane social, economic, or professional status, but rather to one's degree of spiritual enlightenment. That is jati dosh. Not that I'm born in a lower jati or so-called caste. No. It's a degree of one's spiritual enlightenment. All around the world, many people are born into rich and powerful families, but they often acquire abominable habits that are part of their so-called family tradition. However, even unfortunate persons who are taught from birth to engage in sinful activities can at once be purified by the potency of pure devotional service. Such service must have Lord Krishna as the only goal. Man nishtha must be rendered with full faith, shraddhaya, and must be unalloyed without any selfish motivation, ekaya. That definitely can purify even dog eaters. Dharma satya dayopeto vidyava tapsanvita mad bhaktya petam atmanam na samyak prapunatihi. Neither religious activities endowed with honesty and mercy, nor knowledge obtained with great penance can completely purify one's consciousness if they are bereft of loving service to me. So nothing can purify one. So purification is what? Purification is getting out of this bodily concept of life. Other processes, they are based on this bodily concept of life. So the purification is not there. Although pious religious work, truthfulness, mercy, penances, and knowledge partially purify one's existence, they do not take out the root of material desires. Thus, the same desires will reappear at a later time. After an extensive program of material gratification, one becomes eager to perform austerities, acquire knowledge, perform selfless work, and in general, purify one's existence. After sufficient piety and purification, however, one again becomes eager for material enjoyment. When clearing an agricultural field, one must uproot the unwanted plants. Otherwise, with the coming of rain, everything will grow back as it was. Pure devotional service to the Lord uproots one's material desires so that there is no danger of relapsing into a degraded life of material gratification. In the eternal kingdom of God, loving reciprocation between the Lord and his devotees is manifest. One who has not come to this stage of enlightenment must remain on the material platform, which is always full of discrepancies and contradictions. Thus, everything is incomplete and imperfect without loving service to the Lord. So, whatever we perform, whatever activities we do, if that doesn't take us to Krishna's devotion service, it is incomplete. People become very proud of their either knowledge or austerities or selfless work they're doing or anything else. But if there is no bhakti, devotional service. It's not complete. Because everything else is on the worldly level. Only bhakti is transcendental. Bhakti, Bhakta, and Bhagwan, they all are transcendental. So anything material always has flaws, always has reactions, whether pious or impious reactions. And to get those reactions, we have to take birth again. But bhakti is something that has no reactions, no material reactions, and takes us away from the worldly concept of life. So that is why it's perfect. Otherwise, everything else is imperfect. No matter how greatly one performs those activities, they are imperfect. So I guess I can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very powerful.
Thank you, Manta. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Nice class, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Chalo, we can stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.